What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
And Daniel Acevedo.
How's it going, guys?
What's going on? So please continue to tune in throughout the week. So Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CISSP. I don't believe I have one for this week coming up, but I will be recording one this week to come out next week. So I may skip an episode or I might do a throwback. We'll see. And then Fridays, everything else. So movies, books, games, all that good stuff. Speaking of movies, we're definitely going to talk about the Deadpool and Wolverine movie on Friday. So check that one out as well to get our opinions. But without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from cybersecuritynews.com, written by Balaji N. And the title of this one is 0000 day, like the IP address, 0.0.0.0 day. 18-year-old vulnerability let attackers bypass all browser security. So this is kind of weird to me, right? That we're still in this age where vulnerabilities that are well known and well reported, like this goes all the way back to 2006 that this was initially brought up, is still something that can be widely used. Now, when I say widely used, as in a lot of these companies out here that have these browsers have not done a good job of mitigation when it comes to this, right? Like they talk about this in the article about how the different browsers, different things that can be done to exploit it. And also, even though it's not a large percentage, I think the percentage they had in here was 0.015% or something like that of the time it being exploited. It's only a matter of time before this becomes what everybody is doing, right? Because here's why I say this. So no matter where you turn, right? Like you can get on a browser, right? It's easier than ever to get on a browser. Like you can do it from your phone. You got the iPads now. Like you don't necessarily have to have, as it used to be, let's say 15 years ago, right? I know laptops were around 15 years ago. But 15 years ago, most people were on a tower in their house, right? Like you don't have to be that close to like a tower. You have your laptops, your phones, you know what I mean? Like we've just gone through these iterations of making access to browsers very readily accessible to where this is something that it's really going to be a problem, especially if it's 18 years old, right? Like I said, 2006 was when it was first brought up. But in this article, they talk about different ways to mitigate it depending on what the browser is. But all major web browsers that are out there, so your Chromes, Firefox, Safari, and it says Chromium here, so it doesn't necessarily say Google Chrome, but anything that's Chromium based, right, which is multiple browsers, can be exploited by this. So what this actually does, it allows malicious websites to bypass browser security and interact with services that are running on the organization's local network, right? So what this leads to is unauthorized access, remote code execution on the local services by attackers that are outside the network. So this is never what you want, right? Like we've talked about this before. We talk about it all the time, how usually insider threat is kind of your biggest hassle that you can have, right? Whether it be through social networking, phishing, not phishing, but social networking, what do you call it? Unhappy employees that are on their way out the door and they do things, but it's getting easier and easier for people to just do things from outside now, right? So all the security we think we have, we're not really utilizing, right? Or we're not taking care to actually knock these things out when they come about, right? And whether or not it's one of those things where they just thought people wouldn't really use it, or whatever the situation may be, like this is a real threat there, right? So browsers have been a security target for ever, right? You thought they were taking care of this by doing things like sandboxing, right? Like doing sandboxing is in like playing around, doing things in a different area, right? PS being a thing, right? Being secure, browsing. They were like, okay, well, we have these things. It should be good. No, there's multiple issues with this that just are still a problem that still need to be thought about. But again, we gotta, whenever stuff like this comes out, like we gotta take it more serious. And maybe in this day and age, right? Like this is, even though it's been around for 18 years, in this day and age where cybersecurity, we hope, is being thought about and handled more robustly. Hopefully this will be something that, okay, we don't have to worry about it too much in the future, but I'm starting to have my doubts, right? Like this podcast does what it does because every week we come up with something where it's like, hey, be on the lookout for this, right? Like we wouldn't. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I like doing this, but it's like, do I want to be in a position where I don't have to do this anymore, right? Like it's safer that way, but then I don't get to come and talk to you good people out there. You know what I mean? But Daniel, what's your thoughts on this?
Now, you brought up a lot of good points from the article itself. I'll give benefit of doubt here because the article comes out. It does lay down kind of like, hey, world is on fire, like all these articles usually do in the beginning. But towards the end, it does talk about how all the manufacturers are kind of taking steps already to try to mitigate this. I do agree with what you said there at the end, though. It's a little concerning. Hey, this has been around for 18 years and it's kind of been laying dormant. So who knows how many backdoors already kind of exist that use this as the front door to get into some servers maybe and manipulating some services. I mean, at the end of the day, the malicious actors, they're good at what they do. Having this to their arsenal just gives them another foothold to get into an enterprise, right? So I would look at this, they talk about fingerprinting or these other kind of things that remote access and that kind of stuff. But, these guys have other ways to execute these things. But when we're talking about web browsing and the web browser per se, it's a little bit easier, right? Because, if you're a business, let's say you're a mom and pop shop or you're a new startup, when you're developing the web browser, the mobile web browser, things like this probably are the last thing in your mind. Mm-hmm. You're trying to think of like, hey, how do we sell our product? How do we become socially marketable? How do we get ahead of, Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and get those likes and get that followership and, out in the public eye, 0.0.0.0, if that is talking to my services on the internal of my network, is probably the last thing they're thinking about. Yeah. So it's an easy thing for them to use to get at these people. I had to look at, there's a couple things that it alludes to and mentions in this article, like cores. I didn't know the cross-origin resource sharing. I didn't know that was a thing where the HTTP header-based mechanisms allow a server to specify the origins. So when they're talking about fingerprinting and then using that 0.0.0.0, they use that to then see, hey, what services and what things, ports and things the internal services or the internal network is using through the web browser, right? If it's responding, if it's not configured correctly. But, they talk here about that Google is trying to do an addition to that through their PNA, through the private network access and doing a lot of good things. So all in all said, I think, it's headed into the right direction. And maybe, I'm moved back over here in Japan. My life's going pretty well. My family's here. We got more support. So I'm being more positive recently, right? So I think that's what's coming out. But what do you think, Ryan? Am I being too optimistic or should I be more pessimistic here?
Both. Like you should have a healthy balance. Please continue to like, share, subscribe. We are over 500 now. I think we're like 501, 502. So we made it. So now, new goal, more watch hours. It helps us if you finish the videos, right? So if you can just go ahead and just watch our playlist in the background, right? With the sound off, just have it running 24/7. Get our watch hours up. But no, thank you again for like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. It does make us proud to have subscribers. I'm trying to get my words straight. A subscriber base, there you go, on both video and audio. But with all that out of the way, this is just an inherent problem with the internet in general, right? Like this thing is put together with duct tape and string, and we're gonna keep finding these chaotic flaws until we're on web 3.0, 3.5, whatever the future holds, because all they're doing is just putting band-aids on top of inherent flaws. The internet was built bad. People just always forget about that. Like when we were kids, or I don't know about Daniel, but the internet came on a disc, right? And then it slowly evolved from there. So I think really the only way we're going to get around this is like really good patches for the time being, but we need a rebuild of pretty much everything to include these browsers, right? Because if it's affecting, like you said, Chromium based browsers, Safari and Firefox, then it really is just the standards issue. So in order to get around that standards issue, you kind of have to do a rebuild. So it's going to have to be a Safari 2.0 one day, a Firefox 2.0, and then that has second and third order effects. So whenever you do major overhauls, how many websites will be broken? How many servers will not be able to communicate properly? Like, again, because everything's built so poorly, like any change you make has a domino effect. What you got, Shannon?
But So here's my thing to that. Real quick, Daniel, real quick. So here's my thing to that. I don't think they're going to burn it all down. They're not going to burn it all down to make something better. They're just going to keep building on the ruins, right? And the reason they're going to do that is because that's the easiest way to do it, and it keeps people from having to learn something new, right? So like Daniel was alluding to, like the first thing people does, like even if it's a mom and pop shop, the first thing people are going to ask if you're starting up a business, where's your website? What's the address for your website, right? Like, and you're not going to have it to where, like, even us maybe, like, give it another 20 years from now, we'll be like, I remember when the internet was tabs. You know what I mean? Like, that'll be what we're talking about 20 years from now. You know what I mean? But we'll be like Grandpa Pickles. Like, back in my day, I used to have to type in to get websites. URLs is what we called them. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think because they were too lazy to address this for 18 years, I don't think they're going to have the initiative to burn it all down and build something better. You know what I mean? Daniel, go ahead, man. I'm sorry about that. I jumped in.
No. That's amazing because you're right. You know, maybe in the future we just think what we want to do and we're browsing on the internet. It's connected to our brain through that chip that Elon's creating. So, Elon, if you want to sponsor us, go ahead. I'm not against it. I think you have great.
Yes, everything he touches, like he's either Midas or I can't think of another figure that just breaks things when they touch him.
I'm all for the 5th generation brain chip and those humanoid robots that are carry stuff around for me in my house and move stuff. Bring it on. I'm okay for it. But I was going to say though is that I think yes, we're not going to create a new internet. I don't think not anytime soon. I think that eventually will come, and I think that it will fix a lot of things because. Like you said, we roped string, super glue to create and morph what we have this day and age because the purpose wasn't there, as we've said in other episodes. But I think what we are doing security-wise is we are approaching things that are leaving us with the least amount of vulnerable surface space. So I know I've talked about zero trust in the past to death, but when I read this PNA and the cores and all that stuff, it just seems like another zero trust model, another zero trust architecture, right? Like a really dummy explanation of zero trust that I found from Forest Point was, zero trust is a security framework where no person, machine, or connection is trusted automatically. Instead, users' devices and applications must authenticate whenever they request any IT resource. So they're specifically talking about IT, but in this case, with the cores and the PNA, it's not allowing the web browsers to have access or requests to and from that 0.0.0.0, which is where this vulnerability comes from. And I think Google kind of hit it on the head. And the way they're going about trying to secure this, I think is the correct way. But it all comes back to it doesn't matter what thing you have, what IoT or technology you have, and no matter if it's on the network or not already, ensuring that just because it's there, it doesn't automatically have access to everything or to the internal services and has to re-go through verification is kind of where we're leading to as a security overhaul or enterprise or whatever term you want to say in the near future. I think for all services, for all hardware, for all software, for all firmware, because maybe it'll slow down operations and resources won't be that great, but I think it'll be the most secure for everything in the future.
And I think that's what they don't want, right? So you bring up a great point, right? Yes, it's going to slow it down. That's not what we want. We don't want to be slowed down and trying to get to, my app to order my Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? To throw something out there. You know what I mean? Chick-fil-A, if you want to sponsor us, I'm all for it. More so than Elon, but I'm just putting it out there. We having the background we do, we understand the importance of it, but that's not everybody. Everybody else just wants the convenience. We as humans have asked for it. Give it to us fast. I don't care about any of the stuff in the background until it affects me, but give it to us fast.
No, I mean, both bring up really good points. Again, I guess I'm the third opinion. I want it to be burnt down, start over again. We all hop onto the new interwebs or whatever.
You're the Burma jewel thief in Batman. Some people just want to see the world burn. Right?
That is me. Alfred was right. They never found me. But no, and again, I agree. The more reasonable approach is the patching and what have you. But if it's easy to disable these features, that's my problem with it. Or not easy, but over time it becomes inherently easier to disable these things as technology progresses, and the bad guys just get more skilled at what they do. But we'll see what the future holds. I mean, I always say at the end of every episode, I gotta stop saying that, but it's been standing strong for 18 years. It's in pretty much a lot of pen testers toolkits. So we'll see how it evolves over the next few years. But with that being said, please continue to tune in, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit up all the websites that go by our name. It's either the other side of the firewall, the other side of the FW, or Ask a CISSP. Get me up personally. I'm at RY Security Guy. That's RY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much on all the social medias. And where can they find you, Daniel?
In LinkedIn under my name, Daniel Acevedo.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.